We're going to turn over the floor to Dr. Rodolfo Werner, the Senior Advisor to the Pew Charitable Trust and the Antarctic and Southern Ocean Coalition. He's also the Science Advisor to the Antarctic Wildlife Research Fund.
Well, thank you, and thank you for coming. As Christine said, Mark couldn't make it. It was easier for me to come out of Patagonia, where I live, than to coming from the East Coast. So, yeah, things happen, Yeah, just to give you very short overview of my background. I'm a biologist by training. I used to do research on marine mammals in Patagonia. And for the last 12 years, I moved into working in policy issues, focusing on Antarctica, and especially on the management of the krill fishery, and also the establishment of marine protected areas. And I do that as a senior advisor to the ASOC, the Antarctic and Southern Ocean Coalition, and the Pew Charitable Trust in the U.S. Just a few words about the Antarctic and Southern Ocean Coalition, or called ASOC. It's an umbrella organization for any environmental NGO that would like to attend meetings of the Antarctic Treaty. And probably, I don't know how many of you know about the Antarctic Treaty, but it was signed in 1959 by 8 signatory countries. And in doing so, all the land and water south of 60 degrees south was devoted to peace and science, and all the sovereignty claims by those countries were frozen. And it's a good word for the Antarctica, to be frozen. And so in 61, as that one started to be enforced, and so as part of the Antarctic Treaty, there are some conventions like the KRILL Convention, the Convention for the Conservation of Antarctic Marine Living Resources, that I will shortly talk to you about, and which is the one that manages and the conservation of any marine living resources in the water around Antarctica. So ASOC has the observer status, so we can attend meetings of the treaty and meetings of the KRILL Convention. So any environmental NGO that would like to attend those meetings has to do it under the umbrella of ASOC. And I've been, for the last 12 years, the scientific committee representative for ASOC. The other thing is, even Mark cannot make it, and he sends his greetings to all of you, particularly in the case of the Antarctic Wildlife Research Trust. I'm going to be talking today. I've been the person that's been developing that with Sigve Nordrum from Aker Biomarine in the last 3 years. So in a way, it makes sense I'm standing here. When we, just briefly about how we got to establishing the AWR, the Antarctic Wildlife Research Fund, why we did that. One of the things that the KRILL Convention that I was referring to, that was established in 1982, had 2 principles in its text which were very novel at that time. And one is the principle of ecosystem-based management. We're talking about 30 years ago. And also the precautionary approach. And one of the other very important things of the convention is that any policy decision should be based on the best science available. So science is a very important component of the convention. In the annual meetings, normally we have a week of the meeting of the scientific committee that discusses all the technical matters and produces a report that then is being used by the Commission to take any decision. And the Commission has to take decisions based on science. So we're talking about information. So one of the needs for the KRILL Convention is to get the information needed for the management, in this case, of the krill fishery. So we had many discussions with Sigve over the years, and so we were trying, although in the meeting, the NGOs were sitting on one side of the meeting and the industry on the other side, we thought, there could be a neutral place in the middle where we can meet and do something together. And so we had a lot of conversations on that, and we identified that one of the key needs was the monitoring. That is, to get information about how, for example, the colonies of penguins are doing, or the seals. I mean, all the animals are depending on krill, because krill is the key of the Antarctic ecosystem. So by doing so, we got to the conclusion that we needed to create a new source of funding for research, because most of the Antarctic national programs, budgets are being reduced. So we're trying to create a new source. And one of the important things was to do it so that this source has that is dynamic and is not trapped within the bureaucracy of the convention. But also we wanted to serve the needs of the convention, to serve the scientific questions of the convention. And that's when we came up with the idea of creating this new organization, which will be administering funds coming from the industry, and it's called the Antarctic and Wildlife Research Trust. And the vision is to ensure that sound science, robust research, and the precautionary approach guide all decisions on Antarctic fisheries, ensuring a healthy southern ocean ecosystem. As I said, krill is key for Antarctica. Any species in Antarctica feeds on krill or something that feeds on krill. So it's the key of the Antarctic ecosystem. So just to give you an idea of the fishery started in the 60s, and originally was a fishery that was heavily subsidized. It was mainly the Soviet Union was conducting the fishery. And so in the early 70s, the fishery was concentrating on eastern Antarctica, which is the projection of Australia into Antarctica. Over the years, the fishery has been moving, and now for the last 10 years or so, it's very concentrated in the area of the Antarctic Peninsula, which is the projection of South America into the Antarctic continent. By the 80s, the early 80s, the scientists working on krill, they were very concerned about the large fishery. I mean, they were catching around more than 500,000 tons of krill a year. And so that's what kind of produced that they established the Kamala Convention in 1982. So after the Soviet Union got apart, the subsidies were gone, and so the fishery really was reduced. In the last 10 to 12 years, the fishery has increased, and now we are at a level of 230,000 a year, which is still not so high compared to the volume in the early 80s. So basically, and I'm not gonna talk very long about this, but this new organization that is getting money from the industry, and we have to thank Aker Biomarine for contributing for the first $500,000 for this organization. It's an organization that is mainly created to support research that is needed for the Kamala Convention. So in order to make this organization a very transparent organization, we created a board of members, the steering group, so-called, that is being established by the Antarctic Southern Ocean Coalition. We have Mark Epstein Diaz as the executive director, Carolina Andaur from WWF Norway, and then we have Matt Johansen and Sigve Nordrum from Aker Biomarine. And personally, I am the science advisor to the board. I'm kind of the bridge between the scientific advisory committee or group and the board. And that's the other thing. We created the scientific advisory group composed by these 8 different scientists that are head scientists from the Kamala members that go every year to the Kamala meetings. And so in order to make sure that any project that we supported by this new organization will really serve the needs of Kamala. Not only we created the science advisory group, we also created principles. We created also a list of priorities that are needed for Kamala. And we also established a process for projects to be submitted to the new organization. And we're going to make the first call for proposals on March 16, in which we are envisioning to be allocating $300,000 for the first call. As I said, the primary goal is to contribute to new research to Kamala to aid the development of an ecosystem-based fisheries management system. And it says feedback management. Kamala embraced feedback management when it was established. That is that as information becomes available, that information should allow the convention to change the management in a very dynamic way. But this is something that Kamala is working right now, how to do that. What are the variables that should be measured? What are the thresholds? When are you need to change your management? So it's something that is, Kamala is doing right now. So we are very happy to, besides of Aker Biomarine, to have these companies that are believing in this new organization and this new initiative, and so, and what we call supporters. And so, and there are different ways that that you can, get information get information about this organization. And so there are a lot of things that we're doing, but I'm just trying to keep this presentation very brief. Thank you very much.